Good afternoon and welcome, Parkway Elementary. I hope you're having a wonderful morning back over in the States. Welcome to Safari Live. My name is Steve and I have VM on camera. We call him the wildebeest, and we are with an amazing big African elephant. He's moving away from us, so I'm just going to slowly reverse, see if we can get him again. Yes, indeed, this is a wild African elephant, and please feel free to send your questions through with your teacher. Let us know if we can answer them for you. This is one of my favorite animals, and it is a young male, probably about 23, 24 in that sort of area. Not a fully mature male, but he's got a lot of growing to do. Have a look at how amazing that is with that trunk. He's busy ripping up the grass and sticking it in his mouth. Look at that. Now there are thousands upon thousands of muscles in that trunk. There is no bone at all. And it takes them years to work out how to use that trunk. They drink with it, they breathe with it, and they feed with it. Isn't he beautiful? Now it's easy to identify him as a male, first because he's on his own, and second because the shape of the head from the side is a little bit more round than a female. The female, the head is quite angular, like the corner of the table. But we're going to keep with him and see if we can get another look at him as he's walking along. I hope you are having a wonderful morning. I believe it is very cold in the States. Very, very cold with snow and ice. It is very hot here. It is about 91 degrees Fahrenheit, which is rather warm. There he is. Can you see this bird up on the tree, Wildy? Just above him. There we go. Now, boys and girls, that bird is following the elephant. And as the elephant walks through the long grass, insects are chased away, and this bird, called the fork-tailed drongo, flies down and grabs them. There we go. It's a very interesting behavior, and he's a very, very clever bird. Probably one of the smartest birds you find out here. Wow. This is fantastic. We're going to stay with this big elephant bull for a little while longer, and while we do so, we're going to go to my friend Ralph all the way up in the north of Kenya, who has got a lion.
Thanks, Steve, and wow, everybody, we've just come back to where the lions were, and I've just come a little bit further into the grass just to be able to get a better view, and we're still looking a little bit through the grass, but look at that. We've got Mommy playing with the little cubs, and just so that you know, it doesn't seem like the school group will be joining us, so I think they've got some snowstorms going on there, so they haven't been able to join us, so we'll continue nonetheless. And we'll continue watching these lions as long as we can, because these little cubs are really making it entertaining when we do get a glimpse of them through the grass. And as I say, we've actually come quite close to them, but they are still very camouflaged when you look through the vegetation like that. Dale, you've asked a very relevant question. Do they ever mate with their offspring, and would that cause problems? Dale, they would. And it does quite often happen, especially on private game reserves, where for instance, they've introduced or reintroduced the lions. They need to be very careful that they don't have inbreeding. So what happens then, most of the countries in Africa, they've got a very organized science around this, and the lion researchers and conservationists have got a very big memory bank of all the lineages of the lions, and so they will monitor it. And if you get lions introduced on your reserve, you need to make sure that the males and females are of totally different lineage, and then if you have the cubs or decided upon, but you need to take them, is they will trade with those animals to keep the genetics strong, and that they then isolate or don't allow for inbreeding. But on game reserves like this, it's normally stopped by the dominant male, who would chase away the youngsters and so eliminate that inbreeding. Right. While we sit and stay with this little family of lions, let's head to show you.
Thank you, Ralph. And here we are still with that same elephant bull, and just have a look how good he is with his trunk. You see there, he just kicked that branch. He feeds on leaves. Oh, he didn't like those ones. He feeds on leaves as well as grass. And there's the bird following him again. Marvelous as well. He's just keeping a little bit of distance from us. Sinak asks, do elephants or male elephants help with raising the babies? And that is a very big no. They do not. They breed with the females and then they leave. That is essentially all that they do. You don't get daddy elephants. It is all about mums and sisters and grannies that look after. It's possible he's going to go have a drink when it's hot like this. It does make you quite thirsty. Amazing, though, how he just disappears into the bush over there. Such a big animal. Now, an elephant bull can get up to 6,000 kilograms. That's about 12,000 pounds. That is enormous. Enormous, but they are so silent and so quiet you would never think. Hill, and you're a big animal like that. Christina asks the question, why do elephants have tusks? And that's a very good question. Elephants they grew tusks in response or for the reason of feeding. A lot of the vegetation that we have out here, the elephants use the tusks for breaking the branches. They use it for sticking the tusk into the bark of the tree and then ripping it off. There he goes. He's just in the shade over there. So we call them African elephants or savanna elephants, and they've evolved to feed on trees. They've sort of designed over many, many, many millions of years to feed on trees. And you can see him there. He's busy breaking the branches off with his trunk and then feeding on it. And this is a good time of year. This is when the vegetation is very green. We've had a bit of rain, so there's lots of green stuff to feed on. But in the dry season, our winter time, your summertime in the northern hemisphere, they feed on bark. They need to feed on the bark of the tree, and that's where most of the nutrition is, most of the flavor, all the goodies that they need to eat on. So they take the tusk and they dig it into the of that often in their dung piles, in their poo, the bark. Let's see if we can go around and get him. He's just moving through the thick stuff over here. Wonderful to see elephants. So we're going to see if we can keep with this little elephant bull for a little while. And while we do so, we're going to be going all the way up to the Maasai Mara, to my friend Brent, who I believe has got some buffalo.
Well, we're bypassing the buffalo as we go. It's the same buffalo Rolf had a little bit earlier. Now, I'm still on a mission for black rhino today, so I'm just trying to plan my route of attack. Sorry, buffalo, move out of the way, yes. Can't spend all day lazing. Oh, look at that poor buffalo. There was an egret sitting on that buffalo. He decided to use him as a latrine. It is a latrine buffalo. Yes, you. The egret obviously sitting on his back. Well, actually quite a lot of them. There's another latrine buffalo over there. Let me just... with the latrine culprits close by, but it sounds like Rolf's lions are on the move and coming out of the grass again.
Yes, and look at this, everyone. It is absolutely beautiful once again. They've come out of the long grass. I think this female might be quite thirsty because she did look like she wanted to have a drink earlier. But maybe not. Maybe she's just taking the cubs off to another place. And there they've got a hop skippity jump over the water. Look at them. Not quite as graceful as Mommy. Let's see how they cross. Well, there's a bit of a slip there. And now they're all going to cross one by one. And there's 6 of these cubs, I think. Oh, that one took a deeper route. See, even at this young age, they're quite independent. One cub that's a little bit older. I think there's a bit of a mix here between the 2 litters. That one's really swimming across. Oh, you got a bit of a deep patch there. Well, at least it's nice and hot, so you won't mind getting a little bit wet. There we go. Catch up with Mom. That's it. Oh, and have a bit of a game on the way. Tackle each other. Here comes the other female. A little bit of contact calling there as well. Oh, see that? She's... When she does that, she's calling the cubs that I think she might have left just a few meters back. And it seems she's not happy that they haven't come. She's going to go and call them so they can move along. And she's moving now just in front of our vehicle, very close to us. Now, this is a wonderful experience with lions and cubs right next to us, contact calling, going through the water. So she's on her way back now to go and fetch the other cubs. So we'll wait for her to come back. But in the meantime, I think we should watch these little cubs on the other side of the water because they're up to no good. They're playing and tackling each other and having fun. Looks like a little bit of an older one there, enjoying the dominance he's got over the youngster. Lovely when they come out in the open and we get to see them. And they're not invisible in the long grass. And that one that's going up towards Mommy, it looks like he's got quite a fat belly. Probably been drinking lots of milk. So he's as fat as a tick. And always wonderful to see the social, tactile communication with lions. I absolutely love it. Look at that, jumping on the back of Mom. And there's still a contact calling going on from the other female. She's looking over towards the other female as the youngsters start playing with her tail. Shame, I'm sure that youngster's going to bite until... there, she's had enough. She stands up. So thanks, everyone. I think it's absolutely incredible and cute and amazing. What else can you use to describe this? It is absolutely invigorating to watch lions with their little cubs. That's why we do what we do and why we love the bush so much. When you have moments like this. And who would have known when we started out? We didn't see much in the first half an hour, and then all of a sudden you come across something like this. And look at the little youngsters stalking each other, always playing and fooling around. Not a care in the world when Mom's around. And this little youngster's going to chase his buddy there. Tweety Kid, thanks for your comment. Mom looks very proud, and why wouldn't you be when you've got such good-looking little youngsters like this running around? But she's ever watchful, looking out over the grass, making sure that the youngsters are safe. Now, Toma, you're wondering if a lioness would nurse another female's cubs? Yes, it can happen with lions. They can allo-suckle, so you can have a bit of a mix. Normally she'll prefer her own cubs to be suckling, but then once she lies and exposes her mammary glands, some of the other ones can come in and get in the mix. But if it gets too much for her, she'll push the whole lot of them off and stand up. And then they might move and try it on with another female. So they're not quite like the hyenas, where they have a real hierarchy and not particularly allowing for the other subordinates to be able to suckle from her. So the lions do share more of the parenting duties, and so it does happen. Very gregarious. Of all the cats, the most gregarious of the lot. Second only by the cheetah. And I mean, there we see 5 males in coalition, being probably the largest that we know about. So lions, I mean, they can be 30 plus individuals in a group. Really gregarious. And look how those youngsters are playing, hey? We've got the other female coming past now. She's still contact calling. It's like a very low roar. Ooh. She's doing it every now and then. I'm sure we're going to see her little cubs come following. They're very full mammary glands there, so she's got lots of milk, both of these females. Scarlett, you want to know how big and sharp are the cub's teeth at this age? They can be like little pinpricks, quite like a little puppy, and how sharp their teeth are. So that's why quite quickly the females get enough of the cubs suckling, especially when there's a few of them suckling. Then they get quite aggressive in their the way that they're sucking the milk, and they can chew a little bit, and then that's when Mom will push them all off because it gets sore, and they are quite quickly weaned within 6 months, so it's quite quick for that, and it's probably attacking her mammary glands, get after the milk over space and to get some milk. And it's almost like towards each other, and so that's when the females start to really push them off. As soon as they start to grow a little bit bigger, and then mommy's going to not be that accepting of them suckling for too much, and so that's time for them to start eating some meat, and they'll be brought to a carcass or folks, this is really unfolding to be an amazing, and they might be going mobile now, so I'll follow up behind them, and while we're doing that, let's head you on down to Steve, who's want to show us one of our tree friends.
Good afternoon, folks, again, and welcome again from myself and Liam. Sorry about the confusion before. The school drive cancelled on us, and we are back with you live on the Internet Safari. And I have got a magnificent tree to talk about today. I wonder if anyone knows what tree it might be. We are in the drainage line of the Milwaukee, and it is a tree that grows quite close to water and is a good indicator. And these are giants. These are one of the big 6 trees in the Kruger National Park. The skin, or the bark itself, looks like crocodile skin, grey crocodile skin. It is a giant. This tree needs a... Anybody know what tree it is? I wonder. It is a marvelous tree. Gets up to about 55 feet, 20 meters in height. It is a phenomenal sized tree, and growing along the rivers here, it is always a good indicator of where you find water. One of the traditional things that the Shangans, the locals, will do is they believe these trees, because they live for so long, they can live for over 1,000 years, and when they die, because the wood is so hard and so slow growing, it takes over... sorry. I frightened myself with a leaf on the shoulder. It takes so long to break down that generation after generation after generation of people actually see this tree. So they believe their ancestors are inside this tree. So whenever they come past one of these, they'll bow and they'll say the words, Makos. Makos, which basically is huge respect, because this tree would have been around when their grandfathers were alive and all the way down to where they are, and the tree is either still alive or it's dead. And the history, can you imagine the tales a 1,000-year-old tree can tell you? 1,200-year-old tree. It has seen it all. It has seen it all, and it's growing in the river. It is one of the bush willows, Combretum, and you can get some of the flowers there, V. It is the flower time for these trees. Beautiful yellow flowers. They've got a sweet smell to them. They're quite attractive for the bees. You can't hear them now, but there will be bees in and out of these trees for the pollen, all sorts of insect activity. I mean, just look at the size of it. It's a hive of activity. This is trees that leopards like to dwell in. Giraffe, elephant, kudu will feed on young leaves. Isn't that just majestic? Okay, so some of the medicinal values that can be used with the tree is, well, first of all, you can take the bark, and when you burn it, the ash, you can use for toothpaste. If you have run out of toothpaste is not that expensive these days, but it does work. And locals used to take the ash itself, mix it with water, and whitewash their buildings. Quite a nice use. But it is a protected tree now in South Africa called hardekool because of how slowly it burns. It is a prize wood for burning, but it's now protected and is against the law to chop these down. Okay, so if you ever come across hardekool for sale, it is actually not a legal product, but a magnificent tree growing in the drainage line. But there is more to discuss about them, but we're going to continue on. We are, as I said, in the Milwaukee, and it is a wonderful time of year to talk about the big leadwood, Combretum imberbe. And if you'd like to have just a quick little look in my fantastic tree Sabi tree spotter, there is the tree, and most of the time you get them growing. Bobby and Joy, you guessed it correctly, the leadwood, fantastic. And this is where you find them normally close to the river and in drainage lines. They are an indicator of water. Okay, and in Imberbe, the scientific name, the species name Imberbe refers to the hairless leaves. The leaves are very, very, very hairless. And I will find you another sample. I'm not tall enough like a giraffe to reach those ones to grab your sample, but there is an example of the crocodile skin bark. And very, very characteristic. When you come across it in the river, it's very easy to identify. But I know on my bushwalk the other morning, someone asked me about leadwood, and I was able to find you one and show you some of the characteristics of it. Like it is very hard to miss. Okay, we are going to continue on. Let me just engage a little bit of four-wheel drive. I love driving through this part. First of all, it's nice and shady. And we're going to continue through the drainage line, and we are keeping our eyes peeled for absolutely anything. And while we do so, we're going to be crossing back up to Mr. Ralph in the Mara with some lions.
Thank you, Steve. we're just following these lions, just keeping enough distance that we don't bother the little cubs the time, so they from the front, but also making sure that the cubs are staying up nice and close behind them with their contact calling that they keep doing. That's what they do with the cubs, and very often the way that they call them out of where they've stashed them away. And so they keep doing that, making sure that all the little cubbies are following along. But you can see the females are quite concerned about those elephants up front, because they obviously wouldn't like for the little cubbies to be exposed. Maybe the elephants can even potentially harm some of them, so they do need to be a little bit careful. Now, everybody, as far as Brent has educated me, he says that this is the Mara River Pride, and I'm not sure if it's all the females that are here present, but there's a lot of cubs. So there might be other females in another area, but maybe these two have got a little bit of a nursery sort of subsection going on here with the rest of the pride somewhere else. I've never come across the Mara River Pride, so I hope this is a part of them, and as soon as I'm back at camp and I have a chance to chat with Brent, I'm going to find out more about them, because I don't know the dynamics. Now, Jay Strum, you want to know at what age do the cubs join the hunt? Well, they're more than capable from about 6 months, but it's normally from about 8 months to a year when they actually properly join the hunt. And then everything over a year, then they actually start being involved with the actual process of the hunt. But up until then, they're actually just witnesses to it, and they start learning, and they often actually mess the hunt up, because they're the ones that get charge, or they try and take animals that are way bigger than what they would be able to take down. And so it's all a learning process, and it does take time, and the adults are quite patient with bringing them along. Sometimes they can also bring an injured animal, so it's not for the animal that they bring, but it is very important for the youngsters to keep learning, both in play and in while are at this age, even just playing with their siblings. But mom definitely needs to pass on her experience. Now, I am going to just because the cubs do turn around and look at us. That's fine. They can know that we're here, but I don't want to scare them that they're then changing their behavior and running up almost scared of us. That's what I want to avoid, and that's I will with them try and get us the best view possible. More of an open, so we might get a little bit of a better view on them. Gone a little bit away from the not be that they're around. You're wondering if I've ever seen lions injured by elephants. Spaz, I haven't particularly. I've seen elephants charging and chasing lions away. Let's have a look at this elephant here. He's spotted these lions, and so is not very happy right now. And I think that's why the females took those cubs off the road. Listen. He's in the other direction. Wow. He really did put on a little show there. I really hope that there's not a little cub running in the grass. I don't think so. I think it's all a bit of a show from this elephant. I'm just trying to show these lions. It looks like a young male. Might be a female, but it is a youngster. It's in an attempt to try and make himself look bigger. if it is indeed a male, which it looks like. But quite concerned with those lions around, and now starting to make its way back towards the herd. I think it's feeling a little bit isolated and wouldn't want to be around the lions. The elephants are quite nervous of lions, and obviously the bigger they get, that nervousness changes into a little bit of a offensive defense. So they do then come down almost immediately in the sanctuary of mommy's care. Mom, look what the lions are doing to us. Well, and Mom just says, well, just calm down, they're far away. And there he goes and starts drinking again. While the lions are still moving through the grass a little bit. So I'm going to try and reposition once more, get us a nice view. And while I'm doing that and driving off, let's head you on over to Brent and see how his day is panning out.
Well, it is a beautiful evening, not much happening at the moment though. So I've decided to head towards where Jamie said that the Angama Pride disappeared on the sunrise safari, so I'm heading in that general direction and going to go have a little look. While we move through here, we got a chance at the Marsh Breakaway Pride. They like this bottom section of this lugger, and the Angamas were up closer towards the escarpment. So we will see what luck we have today, and always a great spot for black rhino in this area. So lots to look forward to. I'm hoping we might see some pretty birds as well. I'm still chuffed about getting the Ross's Tarako earlier, and some fantastic camera work by Craig as they flew across the Mara River. Well, it sounds like Steve is also birding today, so let's go see what feathered creature he has found.
Indeed, thank you, Brent. I do have a bird with a red beak, also commonly known as the flying chili, the red-billed or southern red-billed hornbill. And I was just doing a bit of preening. There we go, look at that. That was an interesting little move. It's looking a little bit damp. There we go, there's the preen gland right there on the tail where it's touching now. And that will develop all sorts of oil that it covers on the beak and then goes through all the feathers. It's a bit damp, as I said. He's probably had a little swim, a little bath, and now is busy putting preen oil all over to waterproof those feathers, and also to act as the preen oil also works as a bit of an antimicrobial sort of wash that keeps parasites at bay. But it is the breeding season for the hornbills, so this sort of behavior always happens away from the nest or from the roosting site, because you don't want to be dropping parasites onto where you're going to be sleeping, otherwise it defeats the object of cleaning in the first place. Look at that, isn't that such a bizarre looking face? he's not camera shy at all. What a wonderful image. Now you can hear the call. There's a typical call of the red-billed hornbill as he flies over us. He did a flyby. That was fantastic. Just doing a few ablutions there. We are at Twin Dams currently. We're just checking all the water points because this is the time of day to find animals around water. And yeah, we're going to head off towards Treehouse Dam. There doesn't seem to be much happening at Twin Dams. We're going to go to Treehouse Dam. And talking about water, Ralph Kirsten is up in the north with a very aquatic bird.
Yeah, normally an aquatic bird, but this one is an aquatic half-sleeping bird. He's really tucking himself in there, and I thought, I'm trying to cross this little river crossing here and get closer or a better view of the lions. But I thought it would be a little bit rude to disturb this hammerkop in this very serene setting next to a little stream. And I wonder if this is a youngster. And he seems like he might be quite content that he's had maybe a couple of frogs and tadpoles and maybe even little fish out of the water. And now he's just going for a little snooze. He's still got one eye on us though. And in this little stream, we've actually spotted, it's a beautiful setting. From here we can see elephants, we've got lions, and also in the little river next to this Hamakop, we're actually spotting quite a few catfish that are surfacing. And if you've got to look closely, because catfish don't have fully developed gills. They've almost got like half lungs, and so they do need to take little sips of air every now and then. And if we watch carefully, you'll be able to see them surfacing. There's been a lot of them coming up to the surface, and I'm sure now that I've said that, we won't see any. But if we wait just a little bit longer, I'm sure we'll see one or two of them popping up. And as the name suggests, catfish, and this is the sharp-toothed catfish, or Clarius gariepinus, the most common in Africa. They do get over 50 kilograms, but or what is that? It's over 150 pounds, so they do get rather large. But these ones here, quite small, even though we're not seeing any right now, but it forms the staple diet of most of crocodiles. So especially this time of year when there's not too much crossing of wildebeest and zebra through the river, the crocodile actually go and sit in the current, normally in the rapids, with their mouth open, and they wait for the catfish to come swimming downstream, and touches their mouth and they snap them up. But now we're not seeing any. A couple of little risers, and I know these fish very well because I do try and catch them quite regularly with my fishing rod, and they are ferocious hunters as well. They hunt tilapia, and they're a wonderful food source for crocodiles and a lot of birds as well. But they're also known for being able to walk on land. They've got very sharp barbed on their fins on the side, and they actually use that. As long as they stay moist, they can actually move between water bodies. So actually an incredible fish. But there's also some mythical folklore around them, because a lot of people believe that they're not quite water dwellers, because they can come out and walk on land. So quite interesting. Okay, let's leave the little fishies, and I'm sorry, Mr. Hamakop, but I am going to have to disturb your little snooze, because we need to get onto the other side and see what's happened with these lions. So sorry about that, my friend, but you can pop off onto the side and continue your little snooze. This is the only way for me to really go through here, but let's watch. I'm sure he'll stand up and fly off shortly. If not, I'll just try and avoid him. There he goes. Up, and he's just done exactly what I asked of him. Thank you. Good, Hamakop. Now, I wonder if we're going to get up the side of this. It's quite slippery, so it might not actually work, but let's see. Up. The Land Rover is working nicely today. Good girl. Okay, now from up here we can actually see those little cubs with their heads poking out of the grass. It almost seems like the females might have left them and gone off on their hunt. So let's stop here. Let's have a look at where these little cubs are stationed, and those females continued on through the grass. I wouldn't be surprised if they're actually on the hunt, because the way that they were looking across the plains seemed like they might want to see if there's any unlucky warthogs running around. So we'll just see those little cubs, and then we'll try and catch up with the females. Alright, so that's where they've left them. Let's go on now and see if we can find where these... Oh, there they are. I think they're right up front. They're actually very far up front, and they're hunting, everybody. So I'm going to try and catch up with them. They are quite a way off from us. So, while we try and catch up with them and see if they're going to hunt anything, let's head you all the way back on down south to South Africa. And hi, Scott. Scott, I think, has also got some lions.
Hello everyone, and welcome
to this sighting with the Inkuhuma Pride of Lioness. They are busy feeding on a zebra, as you can see, that they caught sometime in the early hours of the morning. As soon as Steve headed out on drive this morning, he bumped into them. It's just 2 lioness and 1 young cub that are here. And for those of you who were with us on the sunrise safari, you would notice that they're not in the same spot where they were feeding this morning. They've dragged the carcass, I'm guessing, about 50 meters from where Steve had them into the shade of this tree. And that's for a couple of reasons. Of course, in this sunny, hot weather, it's nice to be in the shade and to have whatever you are protecting in the form of meat for them close to you. But it also means that it would not create a easy scenario for vultures to see and start swooping down. And if a lot of vultures do swoop down into an area, it will attract more and more hyena. There were some hyena, I'm told 5 hyena were thinking about trying to get these lions to give up their kill, but the lioness were not interested in the hyena's antics. Wonderful stuff. Now, interestingly, I was quite surprised. As we headed out this afternoon, we got here and they were busy feeding on the carcass. They seem to be kind of just relaxing for now. We are planning on deploying Ronald the rover into the scene a little bit later, but I want to wait for it to cool down a bit. So I'm not too sure if these lions have been exposed to Ronald just yet. So we're going to go about things very slowly and gently. And there's Ron, just chilling in the sun with his fancy hairdo. And yeah, those are the plans. So Ronald's not too far away from them, but I just want to very, very slowly ease him closer towards them. Wonderful stuff. Well, my name is Scott and I am teamed up with Seb on camera this afternoon, and we are looking forward to not only playing with Ronald the rover but also the Matrice, this very fancy device which is a drone. Here's all the propellers all folded up neatly, and it's been out of action for quite some time, but thankfully Sebastian has managed to get things back up and running and fixed all the problems with it. So we're hoping to launch this guy up into the sky a little bit later to give you some great bird's eye views, as well as have Ronald the rover. So we've got lots of toys on board this afternoon and looking forward to having some fun with all of them. Alrighty. Well, we're going to stay put here and slowly move Ronald closer onto the scene and make sure everything's working properly with him, and send you across to Steve, who's just cruising.
Thank you, Scotty. We are just cruising. It is a wonderful afternoon, and you seem to feel that if we keep moving, the wind across our face cools us down quite nicely. We are checking the dams and the pans because there's always activity around them. Well, hopefully. It's always nice to find elephants coming down to drink. There could always be a sneaky leopard hiding somewhere in the shade, and that would be marvelous. But if we don't find too much in the next 45 minutes or so, we are planning, if you would like, folks, please give us your comments, to go back and find that little bundle of joy. Would you like that? I know I would always like to. But I feel the need also to move around and just do some different things and talk about some more ecology, find some interesting stuff. The reason I'm not finding any leadwoods where I am is we're a little bit high on the slope, but as soon as we come down towards Treehouse Dam, it's possible we will find them because they indicate water, as I said, and then we can show you. I wonder if anybody can remember what to look at with the young leadwoods that tell you why it's a leadwood. What do you look at on the leaf to tell you it's a young leadwood? See if you can give me that comment. And while we are doing that, please, we're going to go over to Ralph, who has something on the move.
Thank you, everybody. This is still a situation unfolding it seems the females have left those cubs now on the other side of that little drainage line, but there were two of the very small little cubs that seemed to not want to leave mommy, but I think she might now have convinced them to stay just next to a little termite mound, and these two females do look like they want to hunt, but obviously we do need to just be a little bit careful as we try to follow up behind them, that we don't scare these cubs next to that little termite mound. So we will try and take the utmost of care not to do so. They're normally very good once they're left by the adults, that they literally go and hide, and that's them. Obviously you don't want to scare them away from that position, so we always just need to be careful. We just need to make sure that she's not moving with them. If she is, well, then we also just hang back a little bit, but they're looking out over the plains. There's some waterbuck there that they might take some interest in, but if a warthog jumps out now, I think he's toast. So there's every chance that we might witness a little bit of a hunt here, but it depends on what they come across. They are very much looking like they're going to hunt. I'm just going to move forward here. I don't know if those cubs followed up. I'm going to ask one of the guide here that he was a little bit closer than me. So I'm just going to ask him now when we stop, because I don't want to go up behind them, especially if these cubs are with them. Hi guys. They left a lot of the cubs just behind there. Did she continue with those two very small ones? Three. Okay, because the other ones they've left, I think she wanted them to stay, but they just kept going with her. I think they want to hunt, but they don't.
I think they are thinking about dinner. They are not thinking about nursing dinner.
Yeah, and the little cubs are like they don't want to leave mommy.
Both of them have two cubs at the same time. Like the water buffaloes.
And the other cubs are just back there on the other side of that little wash. So I think there were 8 in total. Yeah. No, there was some little bit bigger and then very small. So maybe 1 or 2 months older. Okay. I'll make space for you, eh? There we go, everyone. Seems that those two little youngsters, they don't want to leave mommy, so I don't know if this is going to be a very successful hunt, because the two little youngsters, 3 I think, that's what the other guide said, he saw 3 of them, they're not willing to leave mom. Maybe they've spent a little bit of time away from her and they're not willing to just stay while the 2 females go off and hunt, so they might ruin this, but they'll learn the lesson from mom. She maybe hang back now and maybe let the other female go for it, but I'm just going to move a little bit forward here and then move off the road so that everybody can actually see too. Just coming through here, and we don't want to go up too close behind them because then we'll disturb them, but we've got a view from them here, so we'll just watch them. You can see that the one female is going down a little bit lower than usual, so she's just staying beneath the line of the grass, just staying out of view, and she's got the little cubs with her as well. Shame. So not exactly ideal for hunting, but it does look like she wants to. The hunt getting spoiled by the presence of those little babies. And they're looking out over at some waterbuck, but I'm hoping that there's maybe a warthog in between, because that would very easily become dinner. Waterbuck would be a little bit more difficult. Toro, you want to know how do the cubs know when to hide and wait? It's specific little contact calls and body language that the mother will show to them, and then they know. That's their cue to stay put. And it's very subtle communication that they actually portray to the youngsters. It's quite difficult for us to see that. So very subtle vocalization, and the way that she leaves them while she does that is the signal for them to stay there. But these three have obviously been a little bit naughty and have continued on following, where the other ones have been all the good little uns and they've stayed where they were told to. And so it seems like we're having a wonderful cat day from this morning to this afternoon as well, and lovely with lions. Let's head you on down south to Scott with his nkahumas.
Hello everyone. We certainly are having a wonderful day full of cats, and what's really interesting is that these two lionesses, or at least this one and her partner in crime, have just had a scrap. And it's really interesting that they kind of really went at one another as the one lioness, the one that's on the left, approached the one that's on the right, closer to the kill. There's so much food for all of them, and maybe it's just the hot weather, who knows. But they just had an almighty growling wrestling match. Lots of dust was flying through the air, and all seems to have calmed down for now. It does look like the lioness that attacked the one that approached it is slightly bigger and older. And having lions fighting like this is kind of fairly commonplace, mainly over food, but sometimes they will also fight over territory. And on Tam, you would like to know, how big will a lion's territory stretch? Well, it varies hugely depending on the area that the lions are in, and also the size of the pride that the lions are in. So usually how it gets worked out in lion society is it's split up between the males and the females. Males compete with males for territories, which are usually very large and encompass several female prides, and females will compete with other females and their prides for territories, and the females usually have smaller prides. In this part of the Kruger National Park, your kind of average pride that we're seeing probably ranges over 10 to 15 square miles, maybe up to 20 square miles. So it all does depend, and there's no set rules. You get some areas where it's very dry, and like the deserts of Namibia, where you get desert lions, and they will have huge territories in order to be able to find enough food, and also simply because they don't have too much competition. Now, we have managed to deploy Ronald the Rover quite close into the undergrowth that these lions are snoozing in. We almost parked up against the one hoof of the zebra. So why don't you guys take a look and see what it looks like to be right up close and personal. How cool is that? And we're not too sure why this temperature reading is showing. It's something that we need to try and troubleshoot, so apologies for that. But in the meantime, I think it's still a wonderful view and opportunity to be able to get up close and personal with them. And we've also worked out yesterday, when Tingana was chewing on a daikakel, we didn't realize exactly how the audio systems work with Ronald, but that seems to have been troubleshooted, so we should be able to get some audio of these lions crunching down on the zebra a little bit later, which will be absolutely awesome. But for now, it seems like they're just relaxing. Like I said a little bit earlier, they were feeding initially, which was quite a surprise. Oh, let's see what happens here as this other lioness moves. If she comes closer to the one in the center of your screen, you may see another little skirmish between them. But I don't think that other lioness is going to do just that. Did I see some movement in the back there? There's also a cub that's on the scene here somewhere. I'm not too sure exactly where it is. I think it could be hidden in some of the undergrowth. There's quite a lot of thick vegetation here where it could just be tucked away having a snooze. So all seems calm and peaceful for now, but things are definitely going to heat up here a little bit later. What I can't wait for is the hyena to come onto the scene. I'm fairly confident that a little bit later on this evening there are going to be some hyena lurking about, hoping to steal an easy meal from these lions. Okay, well here you can see this other lioness. She's on the move now. I wonder where she's going. She might try and find some shade next to that vehicle she's just walked in front of. Oh, here's the cub that's also popped out. It's not looking in the best shape, but at least it's got a nice big meal to feed on, and that's going to definitely help its cause. And I'm guessing the fact that it's following this other lioness would probably mean that that is its mother. Okay, very good. Well, we're going to stay put here and send you all the way back up to the Maasai Mara with Brent, who hasn't had much luck with the big cats just yet.
That is true, Scotty. We have not had too much luck with the big cats just yet. Now, this grass is so long in this area that we've done a sort of meander where the lions were this morning. And they're probably just flat in the grass somewhere. Jamie said they came down from this area, and we're just trying to change our luck a little bit here. Wait, is that a lion in the grass? No, it's not. It's a stump in the grass. Now it is getting cooler, so they might start moving now. But they're somewhere in this area. Well, that's the way it goes on safari. Some days you have all the luck, some days not so much. So while we keep searching, let's go back to Rolf, who's got the Mara River Pride.
Thanks, Brent. We're still following up here behind these two females and their very naughty three little cubs. But I still think there's every chance that they might do some hunting, especially if a warthog pops out. I think that would be a very easy dinner for them. But the only problem is with these little cubs following, it does make things a little bit difficult for them. I think there have really been three naughty little children that haven't listened to mommy, and there you see they're following up just behind mom. She's probably saying, "I told you to stay at home." Not really going to be doing any proper hunting with those little cubs following them. Francis, you want to know, will females kill other pride's cubs, or will it only be males that do it? Yeah, it's generally only the males that will do it. The females don't really bother themselves much with other females' cubs. Let's just watch lovely as we see the cubs following mom through the grass. Look at that. She's still looking out into the marsh, but the water bug did clock her, and the little cubs and the other female are coming up behind her. There we go. There's a little head poking out through the grass. See, the grass is way too long for them, so they can hide in there very easily. But they are still ruining this if it is a planned hunt. And that's beautiful with the Olololo escarpment in the background there. It's actually now looking straight up towards our camp. You can hear some frogs. Frogs calling here. There's quite a big lugger, quite a bit of water in it. I don't know how they're going to cross that. I don't think those cubs will be able to. So this might be a little bit of a negotiation here, how to get through this, unless they just go along it. Because if they're thinking about going through it, it's going to be quite interesting to see how these cubs follow. They're obviously working out that it is quite difficult for them to go through there, and probably one of the reasons why they wanted them to stay with the others. So really ruining things for them now, as I can see the frustration in the tail. And that little whip of a tail like that is a little bit of an irritated lion, and possibly because of the cubs. That's one of the signs that we would look for when we're out on foot. You've got to, and you can watch your local domestic cat. When they're quite irritated, they sway their tail from side to side, but when a tail goes up and down, that's when he's just about to pounce. And we will actually look at those kind of behavioral signs towards us if we were out on foot. All that kind of body language and posturing that we need to really be awake to. It really helps us understand what kind of frame of mind the lion is in. But let's go just a little bit forward and see if we can get a better picture on these lions, because this is really interesting with these cubs. So as we try and reposition and see if we can get a better view on these two females and their cubs, let's head you on down back to South Africa, and Scott, who I think has got
Yes, well, he actually with Ronald now, I believe, not with me. And isn't he in the most spectacular position? I haven't positioned Seb in the best spot. We've kind of been focusing our efforts on getting Ronald into a good spot, because, to be honest, in a scenario like this, he is just going to, in most scenarios, be able to do a better job than we will be able to do from further away and quite elevated, shooting down on the subjects. And what you're looking at there is the neck and a portion of the head of the zebra that this lioness has got her paw proudly resting on, like it's her prize. I guess it is her prize. And I'm impressed that these two lionesses managed to catch a zebra in these very open clearings that we're in. There's one or two thickets like the one that they're in here, but it certainly was a job well done for them. Who knows when they would have had their last meal. We haven't seen it. I mean, I haven't seen a lioness on Djuma for the whole month of December. Not to say they didn't come through Djuma, but we had some fairly scarce lion sightings, and I'm pretty confident it's been much of the same the last 2 weeks as well. So this is wonderful that these lions are back on our property. Let's hope they spend some time here. Having said that, though, on the flip side, having no lions around definitely makes Tundi's life a lot easier. There you can see the one lioness which we were filming earlier, and a little portion of the zebra's head, and the other lioness is lying out just a little bit more in the open. Schoolman, you would like to know if lions will ever eat birds' eggs. Well, I think yes, they will. Jamie was lucky enough to have a sighting up in the Mara not so long ago with a lioness walking with an ostrich egg in its mouth. And we're not too sure what happened, whether the lioness managed to crack into the egg and eat it, or if she just lost interest and dropped it. But I'm fairly confident that lions will crack into eggs when they come across them. It's just something that I haven't seen, and it's something that probably doesn't happen too often. But it definitely is something that will happen from time to time. A lot of the predators are highly opportunistic, and they'll take whatever the best opportunity is when they are a little bit desperate. Well, wonderful stuff. Well, we're going to stay with these sleepy lions and send you across to Steve, who's got some of their possible food.
Indeed, thank you, Scotty, and thank you, Ronald, as always. And we have found ourselves a kudu, and there's more than one. As we saw the one, VM said, wait, we'll see more, and then we saw about 8 or 9, and here we have a young male kudu. You can just see the horns on the head, and who can guess what bush it's got its head in? There are in fact 2 bushes there. And as he pans up, you can start seeing the branches. There we go. That is indeed a leadwood. So as the book said, kudu like to feed on young leaves of leadwoods. This is in fact a young kudu feeding on a broken or stunted leadwood. And we are in a small drainage line again, and there's a number of leadwoods here, a number of quarries, all indicators of water. Look at that selection of the leaves, very busy mouthparts, beautiful camouflage of these antelope. And indeed, as Scott says, lion food. Hopefully these guys don't go across the lines. I think they are busy at the moment. But a wonderfully relaxed group of kudu that we have here. There's a couple more just over there. There we go. Looks like a female. With their beautiful long necks, they can feed right down to the ground, and then they can reach quite high up into the branches. Obviously not as high as a giraffe can, but higher than impala. So there's almost that competition, separation between the feeding heights. Kudus are not grazers though. They're not mixed feeders, although there will be a small portion in their diet. Mohammed asks, are there other types of species? And yes, we get the greater kudu, and then I'm trying to think what the kudu is you find up in Maasai Mara. Vildi, do you know what it's called? I forget, but I believe it is a second species of kudu. I think you get the greater and the lesser, if I'm not mistaken. And there's only two species. There we go, you can see the horns. Just a youngster, probably about a year. A lot bigger than the impala when they're a year. And there he is feeding on, is it a leadwood? There are two bushes there. Eloise, indeed, this is probably my favorite antelope. They are such elegant, and it is indeed a joy to see them. And I don't know if you can get right up on his face there, V, but there are a whole lot of ticks. Look at all those ticks. Shame. He stuck his face into a nest, and the ticks are chowing his face, eating his face, apologies. And he is nibbling quite briskly, very busy with those lips. They don't have, as I've said before, they don't have teeth on the front of the palate, on the top. So it's just a hard palate with the lower jaw and the tongue working and just ripping off those leaves. And as a ruminant, the advantages are he just feeds and feeds and feeds and ingests a huge amount of leaves before going and sitting somewhere in a shady spot and ruminating, regurgitating and chewing the cud. So it minimizes the amount of time needed to walk around and expose yourself to, obviously, to predators. And being active this time of day when it's really hot, if you've seen the nkuhumas, they are probably lying quite flat. So it's a good time. It's a good time to be feeding. And a marvelous little young kudu that. And folks, we're going to continue on. I do have some more stories about the leadwoods we'll talk about on the next time you come to me. But while we do so, we're going to go back up to the Mara with Ralph, who I believe has a baby elephant.
Yes, and this is a very tiny little baby elephant, and it looks like it's taking one of its little baby snoozes. So we've gone from baby lions over to little baby elephants. And look at this little youngster. He's tiny and catching it, getting his energy, catching a snooze. That's awesome. Now, there's something that I would like to ask from all you viewers. Which animals do you think have got the most delightful eyelashes? Because I would say the three for me are elephants, giraffe, and ostriches. But which animals do you think have got the best eyelashes? And I'd like to ask all the other guides and rangers that are out at the moment, which animals do you think have got the best eyelashes? But at the moment, this little youngster still carrying on with his little snooze as the rest of the family continue with their grazing. It's wonderful to watch elephants. You see how they grab all the grass together and then they use their foot to really break it out. So you watch him as as he grabs with the trunk, there we go. If it's difficult for him to pull it out, then he'll use his, well, I think that's a female, but she'll use her foot to really then assist in pulling out all of the grass. She's got a lovely set of tusks as well, and a wonderful set of eyelashes. If we can, as she turns her head there, look at those eyelashes, they're beautiful. And it's always mostly a protection for the eyes, so it stops any foreign objects being able to enter into the very sensitive area of the eye. And so giraffe, also wonderful eyelashes, and the same with ostrich. Ostrich are obviously very important because their eyes are actually bigger than their brain, and I think one of the only animals that have that kind of phenomena. But with that, such big eyes, they need to have wonderful eyelashes to be able to protect them. So once again, watching elephants grazing through, and that little baby still carrying on. So it seems lots of you agree with me that giraffe are the winners of the eyelashes, but let's see what everybody else says. Ooh, and Adam, you saying camels. That's a good angle. I didn't even think of camels. So keep those answers coming in, folks. Who do you think has got the best eyelashes out of all the animals? And we've got camel, giraffe, elephant, and ostrich now. Let's see what else we can come up with, because those four definitely got beautiful. Ooh, Madison, you've come up with ground hornbills. That's an interesting one. I'm going to have a closer look next time I see a ground hornbill. I've never really looked at their eyelashes. If indeed they do have any eyelashes, I need to think about that one. And so, everyone, I'm going to start to make my way up towards the Olololo escarpment, and I do still want your answers in. Who do you think's got the best eyelashes in the bush? But speaking of wonderful eyelashes and wonderful people, let's head you over to Herbie.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Herbert Koza. With me is James Henry behind the camera. We are to the north of Galago Pen, very close to the camp. We are on one of the game paths that animals use on a daily basis, from the drinking spot to the feeding grounds, and we will be reading the newspaper to see what animals visited this path. And not just prey species, everyone, it can be prey species, it can be predators. So the evidence will be read on the ground through their tracks. So let's go and see what we can find at the pen. So while going, I can hear oxpeckers that are making noise very close to where the pen is. So in this case, we'll go investigate, checking carefully, because we all know that with oxpeckers, as soon as you... Oh, let's long distance visual of the elephant. We have got a long distance visual of the elephant bull that came to drink at the pen, but unfortunately he disappeared into the thick bush. It seems to me that, I'm not sure if he was approaching the pen or was moving away from the pen, but I saw him moving away from the pen. The oxpeckers are gone. We are at Galago Pen now. There's lots of tracks on the ground. I can see impala tracks here. They look very fresh. They were heading in the direction of the pen itself, but others are going up. The sharp point is the direction of movement. As you can see here, the sharp point is the direction of the movement. So these ones were going up, and this one here is moving towards the pen. And very close to my friend James Henry here, I've got wildebeest tracks. This is the front tracks of the wildebeest heading towards the pen. The open side of the hoof is the pointing of movement. This one was heading towards the pen. We'll go and see what of the elephant bull is doing. So still, I can still see him, but disappearing into the thick bush, heading towards one of the drainage lines. Unfortunately, we lost his visual. We'll try and see if we can relocate him. While we're still trying to relocate him, why don't we see what Scott is holding for us?
My audio just turned off for a second. There's Seb controlling the drone, and he's busy concentrating, and now we're up on the drone, and how cool is that? So you can actually clearly see the drag mark where the lions dragged the zebra across the road onto that bush where they are all now just relaxing. I think some of them have moved off into some other bushes. We can't actually see any of them now, but what a cool view this is. And all the toys are out this afternoon. You can, like I said, clearly see that drag mark that was leading the zebra under that bush. And it's just so wonderful to be able to give you guys a bird's eye view of what is going on here and what the terrain looks like. You can see this large open clearing that we're looking at now is very open and sparse, and that's why I'm very impressed that these lioness did manage to catch the zebra here with just the two of them. A good feat. There's our car, and I think Seb's doing a great job controlling the drone. Hello everyone, I'm giving you a big wave. I'm not sure if you can see me, but you might be able to work us out. What fun. And we're definitely going to have a lot of fun with this machine now that it's back up and running. And the center of your screen is the dark bush where the lions were relaxing a little bit earlier. And like most things, just like the vehicles, the lions will get used to the drone over time, and that will allow us to give you guys some incredible views as they do their business hunting on the move. So it's something that we are very, very excited to be playing with. Good stuff. I'm sure you're all enjoying having Herb out on the bushwalk. Exciting stuff with him leading some of the walks now, and there's a lot for him to now take into consideration that he didn't have to take into consideration before. And I guess that's like all of the new presenters, there's a lot of stuff going on that's difficult to their regular kind of guiding. Okay, are there any lions that we can see in there? Doesn't look like it. I may switch over to the rover feed just for a second just to see if there are any lions under that bush. Let's see if this works. I'm not sure if I change to the rover, if that changes your picture. I'm guessing it probably will. No sign of any lions in there. Let me swivel Ron around a bit. Anyone in here? Anyone home? No, just the old zebra waiting to be eaten. So not much to see there. We'll go back to the drone now. Whip. And now Seb's climbed quite high, giving you a great vista over this incredible wilderness in the Sabi Sands. Beautiful. As you can see, fairly clear skies. I don't think we're going to have any risk of rain this afternoon. And now Seb's taking you off towards the Djuma waterhole, where some of you actually saw the same lioness that we've been viewing this afternoon drinking on the Djuma dam cam. We've got a dam cam set up at these two waterholes that you can see below you. And there were a few hyena wallowing around there in the middle of the day. I'm not too sure where they've ended up. They may have come a little bit closer to where these lions are with the kill. They definitely all know about it. Rebecca, you'd like to know how the heat kind of impacts the drone and flying, and Seb says it's fine. What's that in the... yeah, it looks like some impala down below or close to the water's edge there. So I'm fairly certain it's some impala. Let's maybe see if we can have a closer look. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, just right on the water's edge, on the kind of right-hand side, the eastern side of the waterhole. A little bit more to the other side.
Which side?
The opposite. Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Well done. There's some impala and some inyalas. Yeah, well done, Seb. It looks like some inyalas, some inyala bulls, 2 Egyptian geese. Fascinating stuff. And I think, Rebecca, with regards to conditions that make it tricky for the drone, it's mainly the wind. Seb says the heat doesn't really have any impacts on it, but the wind is one of the trickier kind of elements to have to negotiate. And this afternoon, I mean, there's a bit of a breeze, nothing too serious, but the drone is definitely well stabilized and giving you some very stable views. Great stuff. Well, we're going to be sending you from a bird's eye view of the Sabi Sands all the way down to the earth with Brent, who's found some ants.
Well, not exactly ants, the leavings of ants. Now, you've probably heard all of us complain about safari ants at a point. We've been attacked in camp, and now this is safari ants after they've moved. Now, they build these little walls as they move because they're constantly on the move, and they move home with them. So they build these little walls as just a little bit of protection for when they're moving their eggs and the young ones. So they're constantly on the move, and they move through different areas, eating everything in their path. Cockroaches, small rodents, human beings that are tied to beds. It was actually used as a form of torture amongst quite a few different African tribes in the past, where they would tie someone in the path of the safari ants, and they would just very slowly devour them. It would take days, but it is possible for them to devour a human being. Okay, let's move on, and you can see that the sun is dipping low. It's got a little bit chilly. Batman and I had absolutely zero luck with the cats today, but I'm going to do one last little move along the edge of that ridge up there, and that's near where Jamie saw the leopard. So maybe as the sun is setting, the leopard might pop out of the forest. But it is a beautiful evening here in the Mara. Still a bit chilly. Definitely, I'd say one of the things I do miss about Djuma is the warmth, because it's never really hot here in the Mara. When you're sitting in the sun and it's about 30 degrees, it's warm, but there's always a cool breeze around. We're at high altitude, whereas you don't get that real heat like you get in the low velds of South Africa. Beautiful evening. Now, fingers crossed that the leopard is going to be obliging and make an appearance. Now, up ahead of me, already on his way up the hill, is Ralph. So let's see how far up he's got.
So everybody, we started with a lovely view out over the Mara Triangle, and well, for us it's nearly time for us to go, so I thought we'd maybe finish off with one as well. And I'm only talking about the Kenyan side of things because the show does continue, but look over there, we've got a massive need to there's a wonderful experience with and everything else.
Well, it seems like Rolf has got too far up the hill to have a chat with you. And this big hill off to our left actually blocks the signal when we get up onto that road up there somewhere. But as I said, we're a little bit lower, so we're still good. Great, grand. And I'm hoping to spot the spots creeping on the edge of the forest down here to the left of us. Okay, well, if I don't have any luck, you're not going to see us again, but it sounds like Herbie, instead of having the leavings of ants,